going to give a presentation on what they do and how they keep our children safe. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
Well, thank you very much. Rich, I appreciate the opportunity to have our Phoenix PD in here to present to you. I'm Mitch Von Nechten. I'm the Director of Student Services Secondary. I work very closely with our police officers in coordinating services for the school and such. And these are fabulous people. You know, here at PD, we've had a long-standing relationship with Phoenix PD that, from an educational standpoint, is just a very healthy relationship. They do a lot of good for our kids and for our communities. I actually worked with Ruben. He was an SRO at Shadow Mountain High School when I was principal there years ago. Fabulous guy. I've worked with him and Sergeant Wilson closely for many years. And coming back to the district in this capacity, I've gotten to know our district SRO, Officer Valaire, very closely. They do fabulous, fabulous work. So again, I thank you for this opportunity. And with that, Sergeant Wilson, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. It's a pretty comprehensive program. We're going to talk about the school safety grant, the role of our officers, a day in the life, I believe. So I hope this is just very practical and helpful for you.
Good morning, everyone. Like I said, I am Sergeant Wilson. I've been with the Phoenix Police Department for 28 years. I've been with the SRO program in some capacity for about 15 years and working with Paradise Valley School District for the majority of that time. The SRO program has just changed over time, but we're going to go over kind of where we are currently right now, a little bit about this. I'm probably going to be adding a picture or a picture, but I'm right-handed, so it's easier for me to talk from this side of the But a little history about the program. The Phoenix Police Department has been involved in it for 25 years, so a little bit before I got on, they been with the program. Currently, right now, within the Paradise Valley School District, we have 2 sergeants, because the Paradise Valley School District falls within 2 precincts. We have the Desert Rising Precinct, which is located around 56th Street, Paradise, and then the new Black Mountain Precinct, which is located way up at Cape Creek and Carefree Highway. So the district falls, kind of the schools fall within the 2 different precincts. I've been with them, part of the school district the longest, so I have the most schools in the district. We have about 2 or 3 others that have another supervisor that I work hand in hand with him and the other schools. 14 SROs, and they cover 20 schools. And why that number varies in there is, we'll kind of get into this a little bit more, but some officers will cover more than 1 school. We have what's called a joint grant with 2 schools sharing officer. So we'll kind of get into that. We have currently 1 district-funded officer, and the reason we split that is you have the grant-funded, which is the 14, and the district-funded, which is actually paid for by the school district. And then we have what's called 3 SSO officers, we call them, school safety officers. Those are what we started about a year or 2 ago, because the Phoenix Police Department just doesn't have enough officers to specify to put them in every school specifically. So what we've done is work up a program now where we have some specifically trained officers that can actually work in schools in off-duty capacity. So some schools and school districts will hire officers with off-duty capacity to work. And we're currently right now, the Paradise Valley School District uses 3 officers in that capacity. Kind of a little bit about qualifications and really what I do. The department will require 3 years experience for any officer to test for this position as an SRO. I will create, as a supervisor, I'll create an all-board process, and I'll interview candidates and everything. And really, these are some of the qualifications they have. One of the big things we want to really focus on is understanding the role as an SRO. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But this is really some of the diverse characteristics and qualities that when I'm looking for a candidate. Being able to obviously have oral communication, and with communication they have to teach, they have to work with a diverse group of people, whether it's kids, whether it's parents, administrators, staff, and that kind of stuff, and everything. And then the understanding the role. And that will go into the next slide.
Oh, sorry. Cue me.
So, really understanding the role. So here's where a lot of people kind of get confused with the role of an SRO. Yes, we are law enforcement officers. We're not going to take that away from it. We are law enforcement officers. We're there to keep the campus safe. We're there. We provide a safe environment that's conducive to both teaching and learning. But that's not it is our main focus, but it's not our only role. really what we're there also to do is be educators and positive role models. So every officer that's part of the grant has a requirement to teach 180 hours of law-related education, and that kind of education goes into working, getting into classrooms, working with teachers, identifying is the problems or concerns on campuses and really addressing them through law-related education. And then the positive role model as really being an example on campus, so these kids can see us in another light rather than, you know, everyone calls the police when they have a problem. Or now we can get the kids, if we can get them younger, elementary school, middle school aging, high school aging, they can see us in a more of a positive light, have a more positive feeling towards us. So those are really the three goals. And a lot of people think that we're just there to enforce laws and arrest kids. That is not our goal as SROs. We're not there to arrest kids. We're not there to increase the student prison pipeline. That is not the goal of the SRO program. The goal of the SRO program is really right up here: educate and positive role model, and then keep the campus safe, obviously, at the same time. The training that every officer gets when he comes to my program. So I'll get a new officer, and I'm going to be testing for new officers soon. So what they'll do is the Department of Ed will put them through a 40-hour training course to kind of teach them how to teach. We're not teachers. We don't claim to be teachers. We're not certified. Most of us are. We do have a couple of officers that prior experience that are certified, but we co-teach with other teachers. We have to have a teacher in the room with our officers when they are teaching. But we'll put them through a 40-hour training block, kind of teach them how to teach the law-related education. Every year, they'll receive an additional 8 hours of training, advanced training every year to keep them up to speed on different type of courses they can teach. And as administrators myself, I mentioned everything, we'll go through a yearly leadership training, kind of to review the grant process, review the what goes on, what we're looking for and everything like that, and how to apply that kind of stuff. So we'll go through training every year too. Now, that is the training that the Department of Ed requires all of our SROs to go to. Now, the Phoenix Police Department has taken that, and we've actually increased it all. So every year, I'll take my officers, and we'll go through a annual 40-hour block of instruction with the officers. That's more police-related instruction. It's not very. I'm not teaching them how to teach. Now we're going to kind of talk about what we need to do on campus, how we need to respond. So everyone is always interested in active shooter training. Yes, we train for active shooter training with the SRO specifically. We have a little bit different response with them. They're usually on campus by themselves, so we're training them on a solo response type of thing, an active shooter situation. We are partnered with the Paradise Valley School District, and we're actually using their schools to actually run through scenarios and stuff like that and do training in them, which helps us immensely get familiar with the campus layouts and everything and how to respond. We viewed the crime against children, how we have to report them and everything, mandatory reporting, big thing within the district, and we're all mandatory reporters, and how we have to report to DCS, any kind of situation that's involved in everything. We review them, any kind of policy, updates, anything like that. Social media is always a big topic in schools and stuff like that with kids and everything. They're well advanced, usually further than we are along when it comes to social media, so we're always catching up. We get the new latest and greatest things that are coming out. And then we attend the Arizona School Resource Officer Conference, which is held every year, put on, it brings SROs throughout the whole state together. It's an opportunity for us to go through some additional training and also kind of network between other schools, other districts, other offices and agencies, and kind of find out what's going on in their districts and how are they handling it, and how things that are going on in our district, how we're handling it. We kind of bounce back ideas and everything back and forth with each other. So we go through a little bit of networking at the conference, and that's usually every year, every summer we go through one of those. We're switching gears from the training and everything and what we go through and everything. The school safety grant, how it's funded. So there's 3 different types of officers which we talked about. The first one is the school safety grant. That's funded by the general fund of Prop 301 that was voted on many years ago. Approximately $11 million in that grant. It's a 3-year grant cycle, so every 3 years it's a competitive bid process. So every 3 years, the schools that want to apply throughout the state will go through, they could go through some training if they want to, but they'll fill out a grant process, they'll fill out a grant application, which is online and everything goes down to the Department of Ed, it gets scored, and all the schools are ranked based on their score. Last grant cycle, which was a year ago, 17-18 started, 227 schools throughout the state applied. There was 128 grants awarded. The grants get awarded, so everyone gets ranked on their score from 100 down to whatever the bottom score is. And basically, the Department of Ed starts at the top and funds positions based on salaries. So each department throughout the state has a different salary structure for their offices and everything. So if the Phoenix Police Department, if it costs $100,000 for round number simplification for an officer, so you take $100,000 off for each officer that gets funded from the Phoenix Police Department until they run out of money. That's basically where you come out with, and that's where you came out with about the 128 officers that got awarded statewide. Phoenix, as a city, did very well. We are one of the largest cities, obviously, so we do have the most schools. So we ended up with 64 of the Safe School grants throughout the city, and Paradise Valley School District ends up with 14. 14 is an incredible number. If I showed you the statistics of all the districts and everything, at the size of the Paradise Valley School District and the size of all the other school districts, that's an amazing number. You've probably seen maybe Mesa, that's probably, I believe it's a little larger school district, maybe has about 15 or so SROs total for them. So out of all the schools that applied this year to Paradise Valley School District, I think maybe 3 didn't get funded out of all that. So they're very successful. Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious, what's the criteria for the grant? I mean, how are they ranked? Like, is it based on?
There's a scoring rubrics, and it comes to everything from whether you're a new grant or an existing grant, whether you met the grant criteria from the existing grant, or it's a needs assessment. So the schools are going to fill out what's called a needs assessment. They're going to identify needs, and then they're going to have to identify what resources they have in place to address these needs, what resources can they use to place them, how can the SRO be used on the campuses to affect that. So it's a whole scoring process. There are rubrics down there. Without getting too technical, they all get down there. They have scoring groups. Every grant gets reviewed by three people. They all score, then they get into a team. They come out with a score, and it can be decimal points that separate schools. So, and the cutoff, I believe, for this grant cycle is about 87. That's from 87 or higher. They get the grant. So 1 point can be the difference between getting a grant and not getting a grant.
And who plays the application? Somebody?
Right, so when we're preparing for the grant cycle, this would have been actually, not last spring, but the spring before, correct?
16.
Yeah, because we're in year 2 now of a 3-year cycle. So generally at the sites, it's one of our school administrators, the principal, assistant principal, working with an existing SRO if they already have one, maybe some other team members that work with the school safety team, and they'll collectively put the grant together. They'll gather information. The ADE is looking at some evidence-based. What's the data that says you need someone there? How are you going to best utilize them? And then we submit the grant. And I will tell you, we have historically done really well. Our administrators, I'm just very proud of the work they do. The fact that we got 14 of the 64 here in the city is an amazing number. So they do a good job.
So you probably just look at the numbers. You see, it's not all based on calls for service, police-related incidents. Because when I go back and talk about the grant, it's not about arrests. It's not about police work. It's being on campus, being a role model, mentor, and a teacher. And that's where you look at the needs assessments and everything. And I mean, obviously, if we put an officer on every campus in every school, we'd love to do that. But the departments don't have enough officers, and we just couldn't physically do that with the staffing. But that's where the school district and the administrations and the teams at each school that write these grants do an amazing job. And it will take 2 weeks to work on putting the grant process together. Because not only do the schools do an amazing job putting it, then they send all the things here to the office, and it's your secretary, Amy, will then put together all these grants and everything. They put an amazing package together. It gets emailed, it gets hand delivered down there. Paradise Valley, I will tell you, the other districts pull up the PV grants and review them and read them to see why they did so well. But I would tell you, in my years Shadow Mountain scored #1 twice, 2 grant cycles in a row at 100. And either written by the assistant principals, by the health people at the schools, by staff members and everything, just to bring together a team of amazing people that really work hard to do an amazing job of getting grants. They really do.
So again, we're comfortable in that we have our SROs through this year. This is year 2. Then next year, again, we will have them at our sites, but we'll begin this application process, under the presumption that we're going to have another school safety grant program.
More likely, I don't
Yes.
see any change in forward to the funding or anything like that. So if we want to break it down to the different positions, you met Ruben and Jeff here. So Jeff is my district funded officer. The difference between a district funded officer, he doesn't have any grant requirements. So he's housed out of a specific school, which we identified before the school year started, which school we were going to house him out of. He works out of that, but he responds to any of the schools throughout the district that have an issue or concern. Now, there's only one officer, so obviously there's a lot more schools than officers. So he has to prioritize what he's got going on, and he actually goes to the school. So if a school that doesn't have an SRO has a situation, maybe they have a parent coming in that they feel could be confrontational or something like that, we'll call up, we'll have Jeff over there just to help keep the peace and make sure the meetings go over well. And then if we have a situation where he can do everything from, if we had to make an arrest, we can go over to make an arrest, but that's not what we really like to use him for. But he can go over and teach, he can go over and help out with the situations that are going on. If we have threats out of school, I bring Jeff over as an extra body, so we'd be out of school and everything to help out with that kind of stuff. Yes, ma'am.
How does that work? Because we have PV district schools in Scottsdale.
There's 3 schools in Scottsdale, I believe, still. Scottsdale has jurisdiction over there. Scottsdale does have SROs. Now, Scottsdale works a little bit different and everything. They're not granted position and everything, but I believe it is Scottsdale PD supplies SROs to schools, they share them.
But the district officer couldn't then go.
No,
over
I
to
wouldn't
the-
send them over there, although we will go over there. I'm gonna do some co-teaching with Scottsdale coming up. I'm gonna be at Pinnacle Preparatory School, the old Pinnacle Peak Elementary, now Pinnacle Prep. I'm gonna go over there and co-teach with them on some active shooter things. So we do work hand in hand with Scottsdale and everything, and we do have a good relationship with them. The reason why I go over there and co-teach with them is we're really not teaching police philosophy, we're kind of just teaching active shooter response thing, which is kind of more of a general type of thing.
In fact, I had the opportunity, Sergeant Wilson's counterpart over there would be Sergeant McKinnon. He works with all the Scottsdale resource officers. And so I went out to one of our elementary schools there, and we had a meet and greet and introduction, and I introduced them to our 2 other elementary principals. So they had a connection, they know. We've been doing active shooter training. I should say Officer Blair and Sergeant Wilson have been doing active shooter training across all of our schools. And Scottsdale wanted to do it for our schools in Scottsdale, and so we're teaming in one of them. Just so we have a common understanding, and they're wonderful people. In the conversation we had, they're encountering a lot of the same things in their classrooms that we encounter here, so it's some kind of a affirmation of some of the challenges we face, but there's a good connection there.
So, with the district funded officer, Jeff, so he's funded right now, we house him out of Sweetwater School over there. He's on a year-to-year grant, so every year we review the grant cycle and IGA with the school district and everything. We review the position and everything, and we can review what school he would need to, if we need to move him to a different school, we could house him at a different school. So that would be his position. It's not, he doesn't have a teaching requirement, so he doesn't have an on-campus requirement, so we can move him around, and we can utilize him for wherever we need him. Then the other 3 officers we have is the SSOs, the school safety officers. Currently, right now, we're using 3 school safety officers. We have 1 at Horizon, 1 at North Canyon, 1 at Greenway Middle School. I think the reason we picked those schools out is 2 of them had what we call COPS grants. That was a separate grant that expired a year ago, so they actually lost it. There was a city grant. So what we did, we backfilled those 2 positions with the SSO officer. So those have off-duty officers at those schools. That really gives us an officer at every one of the high schools and most of the middle schools and some elementary schools. So those would be those 2 officers. And then,
So essentially, we're supplementing the grant with some additional resources there.
Okay. here's a list that Mitchell was able to comprise of all the schools, so you guys can see them. And you kind of see here like a Explorer Mountain Trail. So they put in for a joint grant, so they actually share an officer there. You'll see down here, Old Creek Trail 1, Leeway, Campobello, Hills and Larkspur. They were called what we call shared grants, so an officer would split the time between the schools, teach at both schools. Really works well at the middle and elementary school level because it gives the officer, there's not always as much to teach at that level, so it kind of gives the officer the opportunity to get out to multiple schools and teach at multiple locations and everything. And there's no restriction from going back and forth. If there's something going on at a school, he needs to be over there, he goes to that school. Otherwise, they try to share their time back and forth and everything. But it gives us better coverage because the lack of officers that we have on the department gives us a little bit better coverage to do the shared grants. And these have been in place, Explorer Mountain Trails, Campbell and Libre, and have been in place for a while. This is the first year grant cycle for long-term Hills and everything. It's working out really good. We have a great relationship with both.
Oh, no.
Some of the other things we do as SROs, it's kind of nice for us to be able to do things other than, wear a uniform and everything. So these are kind of just a few things we put together just to give you an idea. So we do Christmas, the shop for the cop, and the holidays come up, so we added that. It's really a good program in the sense that we're able to identify, we get about 8, 10 kids throughout the district that we could take. We actually take them down to Target. Target gives them $150 to shop at the Target store one morning. So we'll get kids throughout Phoenix and everything, throughout the district, the SROs, throughout all the districts and everything. We'll identify kids and everything. We'll bring them down there. They get, breakfast, snacks, and stuff like that, and everything. Santa comes. The kids get to go in and shop with the officers. The officers escort the kids through, and they do shopping with the kids and everything, and then they wrap the presents and everything and take home. Kind of a nice benefit for the district and the kids and everything. Angels on Patrol, if any of you haven't heard of it, it's a group that was started by a retired lieutenant from the Phoenix Police Department, and they are an awesome group. I wish I could give you more details about them, but what they do is we reach out when we see a family in need, a student or a family in need, a single parent lost a job or something like that, or some make a rent, kids go back from, go to school and everything. Our SROs, they get involved, they can reach out to Angels on Patrol, and they will actually go out and make the rent payment for the month, pay a utility bill, or take a kid shopping who doesn't have any clothes and needs shoes or something like that, for just, kids in need and stuff like that. It's really a great organization. They help that out. Our Wake Up Club, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll stop at the Wake Up Club because that's one of my favorites. And that's a group that we've been running at the Paradise Valley School District the whole time I've been here, 15 years plus. And what it is right now it's out of Vista Verde, and I have an officer at Vista Verde who runs it on a volunteer basis after school. She meets with our Vista Verde Club with students and everything. And they do different projects and they throughout the school year. And what it enables us to do is run a summer camp. So we've been actually, not aware, but we run a summer camp at the SROs out of Vista Verde. And usually we can handle about 50 to 75 kids and everything. They sign up and everything. And it's kind of a three-pronged approach. They do there's an educational component, so we try to bring some educational into it. There's a volunteer program, so we do some volunteering. I go to St. Mary's Food Bank once a week, and we do kind of volunteer programs. We do some cleanups and everything like that. And then we try to take the kids on trips and do some things that they may not get to do in their normal life. We've gone everything from the Lowe's Observatory down to the Natural Bridge to just different areas where science center and do some trips like that. So we get to take the kids in. Sometimes roller skating, ice skating, do different activities like that. So just kind of a few
I'm
things
sorry,
that
just to clarify, so is that then needs-based, the students who are involved in that, or how, are they referred?
It's usually
Or is it
referred
just
to the
open
SRO.
for
It's
people who
open.
are-
It's for 7th graders. Ruby's more of an expert on this.
So yeah, its design was originally for 7th and 8th graders, and it's a result of a lawsuit that happened, which is what happens with most city things is, it came about after a shooting in a park, a city park that killed a teenager. And so in this agreement, the city made this club, Wake Up Club for at-risk youth. And the center of it was 7th and 8th graders. Since then, it's expanded. The group that I used to run for many years, it included kids from 4th grade through to their senior year in high school. So, and it's not really needs-based, it's more of what we can handle as far as the department. How many officers will they give us to do these programs? And then how much money do we have to do everything that we need to do or want to do with them? And we kind of, that kind of gets taken care of through the school year until we get to the time that we let individuals or parents come and get applications to come in. And we take as many as we can, and we just put a cap on it. So it's usually, most often, first come, first serve. But yes, there are referrals that come with that.
And we very rarely have to turn down very many kids and everything. The only time what we'll do is, because we'll just open up and have a cutoff date so we know what our enrollment is. If they get the packages in before the cutoff date, we take most of them. And usually, like I said, we're running somewhere around 50 to 75 kids through our summer program. That we keep costs to a minimum. It's usually a minimum charge, if anything, for the kids. They come and everything. Sometimes if it's a trip charge or something like that, but usually minimum charge. Obviously, we work very well with the district and everything, and doing the mock drills and other activities about the community. But that's kind of more of the history of the program, I think, where it comes from and everything. I've worked Ruben and Jeff here, kind of, if you have any questions about the day in the life of an SRO, like I said, Ruben's been with me for my 15 years here. He's been through several districts before he came to us, and he finally made it to Paradise, and now he's stayed with me for the last 10+ years, I think. He's done Shadow Mountain, he's done Pinnacle now, he did Quail Run
in Boulder Creek and to Palminos.
Yeah, so he's done numerous schools within the district. He's one of my top SROs, and Jeff has been with me for a couple of years now. He is my district funded officer who goes out to all the schools, and he does an awesome job of helping out on any school campus that's needed, helping me out, making my life easier. So, anyone have any questions or anything?
Do you have a question? We had an SRO last year at Desert Springs. It's an elementary school. This year we don't have one, but our principal was asking if we have a situation where we either want an SRO to come in and talk about social media concerns to the kids, or even have an escalation with a parent. How do we get someone from your organization to come in and help us without having to go through the police department?
If you just wanted just to do a one-day type of training, everything.
So I think that's what she's looking for. She is looking for some sort of assistance, but there's also been some situations where we've had some escalations with parents where what we do in a situation like that as well.
You're probably going to go through Mitch at the district. The principal can go through Mitch at the district office, and either myself or Officer Blair will be out there. In fact, I think it's at the school. We were talking about. I was out at the school a couple weeks ago for a parent issue and everything. So every administrator before the school year is given our phone numbers. They all have a list of my number, Officer Blair's number. We like them to go through Mitch. He's the center of coordinating the activity and everything, so he kind of has an idea of who's going where, what the situation, the problems are.
Jeff can get pulled in a lot of directions real fast. So generally, when a principal has a concern like that, if they can give me a quick heads up, Jeff is very fast to respond, and I know that they're there, and we can work through that. But absolutely, you mentioned some of the training. Our last year, and I think Ruben was involved with this directly. Our technology department began working with our SROs for digital etiquette and such, and working with students, and developed really nice programs at the elementary level that we could also, regardless of you being a participant in the grant or not, we'd be happy to have that presentation aid, things like that.
And is that something that can be shared with parents as well? Will we be able to open it up to parents to come in and see that information also?
We can do parent training. In fact, part of our grant does allow for 20 hours of community-based training and everything like that. We've tried, we work through the schools. If the school want to do a parent training and everything like that, in my experience, we've done some drug education programs with parents and stuff like that. But what Mitch was referring to, the digital citizenship, was their IT department actually came to us with this program and worked with all the education department on doing a digital citizenship throughout the district too. So yes, we can come and we can do individual school trainings like that, and myself, Jeff, or any of the SROs can go over and help out with that.
And this is what we're working on right now. So with the digital citizenship initiative, when I, as an SRO, go out and teach it to, say, one of the Miss Fillmore's 4th grade class, what we're looking to do is to get those parents from that class and say, hey, this is what we're doing this week, and we want to put that online. So you can, as parents, you can go through that, go through what's being taught, and then when your kid comes home, you guys can talk about it also. So that's what we're working on right now.
And I can just speak to that program. I have 2 kids at Fireside Elementary, and they're going through the digital citizenship program, and it's fantastic. The information that the kids are learning and that's provided to parents online has been really, really helpful for our family.
I was just curious, is there a typical career path for which the SRO, SSO kind of falls into, or does everybody come about it through a different way? Or do you want to share your personal reasons for getting involved? Is there a typical next step beyond, or just share a little bit about?
That is a great question.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good, because so I got involved about 15 years ago, not even really knowing what the SRO program is. We all choose different career paths, but we have to test anything specialty out of control for us. So we tested for it, and I got involved in it, and I really saw the benefit of it. So now I actually do the testing process to bring SROs over. So a lot of it is word of mouth through office and everything, because some offices are cut and they are just great SROs and everything, and some are not great SROs out there. You know, we have good, we have bad. So what we're really looking for is just those kind of skills that show up there. Can they work with kids? Can they work with youth? And you know, how comfortable are they in presentation and that kind of stuff and everything. It's a very selective process. So I bring 2 other SRO sergeants who will sit down with me. We'll do an overall process. Usually that's about 30 to 45 minutes. Question them, give them some scenario-based type of questions and some different policy questions from the department-wide, make sure they understand and walk through them, and then we'll rank them. And hopefully, we try to do the best fit possible with the SRO school. Like I said, Ruben moved to a couple of different schools, just based on fit for the administration and the SRO. And I'll let Ruben tell you about his career choice, how he ended up
We
with.
miss him.
Yeah, I love all the different schools I've been to. It's been great. And so on to that question right there, though. The TV that we all watch, television, the PV shows, all the police shows, you know, it's always the homicide detective that everybody wants to go out and become one day in life. I mean, if you ask anybody, or a lot of people, they say, yeah, I want to be a police officer, but I want to be a homicide detective. It's because all these shows that they have. Well, so in my department, it's like a little city in itself, because we have the needs for all these different types of people, which, I mean, the homicide detective is just one of many types of detectives that's out there, and then one of many different types of positions that are out there. So an SRO position is one of those many things. Me personally, I'm always on the lookout for an officer's personality, to be able to go back and say, hey, you know, the SRO's program is going to be interviewing here sometime soon, because it's a different type of personality. And I'd say either you have that personality or you don't. And so I'm always on the lookout to see who, you know, we can bring into the program. And that's how I was brought in. One of my old sergeants became an SRO sergeant, and she came back to me and said, hey, I want you to be on my squad. And at the time I said, what? Are you kidding? SRO? I'm out here on the mean streets of Phoenix. And seriously, so the patrol mindset is way different than the SRO mindset. I mean, they're two different people. So I don't know what she saw in me, but for me, it's what I look for in other officers, and I can identify that in a heartbeat, too now. So that's how I got involved in it. She said, hey, you want to do this? I said, no, not my thing. And a little bit later, after thinking about it, I thought, all right, well, maybe it is my thing. I'll try it. And
10, 12 years later.
yeah, here I am all these years later. Right.
Good thing she knew what she was talking about.
Yes. She's a good person.
Jeff?
I had spent 13 years on the street doing patrol work, plainclothes undercover work, investigations, search warrants, tactical units. So I kind of wanted a career change, something different. This is a good challenging spot to go to, something completely opposite. Work with the community more, work with kids. So the part that I do, the district funded spot, I have a variety. I wear 1,000 different hats. I get to do investigations. I'm out and about all the time. I'm not good at sitting still, so I'm okay with the always getting called and moving in different directions. So it fit right into kind of my idea, and I get to work with every school, which is great. I get to meet all different types of parents and kids, and it's good. I enjoy it. It was completely different than what I was used to. It was definitely a challenge. I needed something different, so yeah, it was fun.
I think our department and departments throughout the United States have tried to formulate a community-based policing type environment, and I think a lot of places have failed to do that. For me, the SRO program is like the definition of community-based policing. It allows us to get to know parents, students, everybody in our community. And I'd say if done right, that community accepts us, and we're able to work on things not just at the school, but pass things along about the community to the other officers and details that are going to be able to affect the community.
I was wondering, can you give us like a typical day for you? Like, what do you do in a typical day?
Oh man, there is no typical day. I always joke with my wife, she'll say, well, so what did you do today? And I say, everything that I needed to do, but nothing that I wanted to do. I try to set the 2 hours of teaching every day. I mean, that's my goal, is 2 hours of teaching every day, minimum. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I mean, just depends on what comes up. A lot of times I'll have parents show up at my doorstep needing to talk to me immediately. And a lot of that, and I don't mind that at all, because a lot of it is, hey, my kid's acting up. They've really crossed the line this time. We need to have you with us when we're talking to them about whatever subject. And it's fine with me. It's not like it's when that happens, that is what we're trying to, I guess, our goal is not law enforcement, but it's teaching. So law enforcement is part of our job, of course, but a lot of it is being there and trying to better these students and make them better community members. So when that stuff comes up, I drop, at least one of my 2 hours and deal with that stuff going on. But I try to take 2 hours out of my day to get to my law classes to do the teaching that we need to teach. But again, there is no typical day, and that's what makes it kind of exciting. A lot of times I'll wake up to my boss asking me to call him. And it just starts from there. It's, I'm talking 5:30 in the morning, and then sometimes I know we've been on the phone sometime 10 o'clock at night about whatever issues we have going on, and until we resolve whatever issues we have going on. So I can't say that any day is a typical day. I try to be as visible as possible. I hate being, I'm kind of like a Jeff. I don't like being in my office, and my boss hates that because I don't get my logs done, because I hate the computer. I'm not a computer person. I'm a computer moron. And so I don't like being in my office. I like being out in the public and with all the kids and doing stuff, being visible. So my monthly logs pay for that. But one of our goals is visibility. So I don't mind it.
So do you arrive, like when the kids arrive at school, you're already there? And do you
Yeah, what
stay
kind of
through the whole
hours?
school day? Or what, physically, where might you be in it? Like,
So physically, so I start at 6:30, but I have to go to the station, pick up my car. And if I'm any kind of late getting out of the station, I come from 3rd Street in Union Hills, and I go to Pinnacle High School now. So any way I get to Pinnacle High School, if I'm more than, say, 10 minutes, so 6:40, I'm stuck in traffic, just like you guys are.
Oh, come on, you throw the lights at.
I wish, that would be great. You know, and when I sit there in traffic, and I'm stuck in traffic, and I see a lot of people motoring down the two-way left-hand turn lane, I'm thinking, oh, that's not right, I wish I could do that. You know, and really, I don't have time to stop anybody, I'm trying to get to class or to school.
Real quick on the schedule thing, real quick. Every school, so we work 40 hours a week, so we either work on a 5/8 or a 4/10 schedule based on school needs. So the school will identify what they want the officer on, so if they're on a 5/8 schedule or a 4/10 schedule, what they would like. So if you're on obviously on a 4/10 schedule, it's 1 day a week, you're not there. Kind of give you a little bit expanded coverage, a little bit before school, a little bit after school, and then a 5/8 schedule will put you there 5 days a week, but you give up a little bit of either the before school or the after school times. The officer's schedule does start at the station. The time starts at the station when they pick up their car and end at the station when they pick up the car. So he'll pick up his car and then he'll get to school. We do probably position our cars where they're picking up their cars to the closest station to their school when we can do that within reason. So the officers will get their car, get their school relatively quickly. So at least the whole school day. Sometimes some schools may be able to be there before school, but we may not be able to be there very late after school. So it's based on school needs. I let the principals decide. And right now, I can tell you, currently we're basically a 5/8 scheduled district, and that changes throughout the city.
So I guess since there's no typical day, can you just give us some scenarios of things you deal with on a daily or more of a weekly, monthly basis?
So I would say normally when I get to school, I have either parents waiting for me, or I have parents who have called or are on the phone waiting for me. For whatever reason they have.
For what kind of reasons? I can't ever imagine calling, so give me some scenarios.
Orders of protection
Give me some
sometimes,
scenarios.
Yeah.
filed against each other, or students have, and so
Okay.
they unfortunately have to sort it out and how it impacts the campus.
Okay.
Definitely that. I mean, that's a good one, which is, you had a lot of, I see divorced parents that, I would say, their students are stuck in the middle, and it all comes together at the school. And so, a lot of times my spouse or my ex-spouse didn't show up with the kids when they needed to, and so they want us to get involved, or, so those kind of little things that, a lot of people have those issues. So
Missing
Monday is
juveniles is a lot.
Okay.
Missing juvenile calls, parents call and don't know what to do.
Where's the kid?
How to report, what do we need to do, probation, they're on probation, they got picked up, making bad decisions. A lot of it is just life help, like we don't know what to do, what direction are we going? So a lot of those calls with parents.
Social media posts that's
Yeah.
taken on a life in the community.
That hurts us a lot. Social media, you guys can do anything with social media, your kids, stop. Because we would deal with it, well, I'll get calls from either late at night, someone posted something on the internet. It could be the simplest thing of a threat to something to a school, and it would take us hours to investigate that, because you're going to start with the threat, now you got to backtrack it to try to identify who made it. Is it a valid threat? It's not a valid threat. It's going down with that. Kids sexting was a big issue for a while. It still is a big issue with kids and everything. So we're dealing with educating kids on what happens when you take pictures and you do send them to a friend, and it's a middle school girl or boy that's sending them and thinking that it's my boyfriend, and then I broke it up, and now it's throughout the school, that type of thing. So we educate them on those type of things.
So when you're educating, are you educating one-on-one with a child or a student who's already done that? Or are you educating on a larger scale with?
We'll do both. So we'll actually identify the kid and investigate the crime. Now, that particular case, it is a crime technically on the books, but we really go into the educational component of it, teaching these kids because they don't really know what they're doing. So we do have to investigate the crime point and document what we're doing, and we always bring parents in, school policies and everything. We always bring parents in, make sure that they're aware of the investigation. We're talking to the kids and everything. And then if we identify that, that's where our law-related education comes in. So if we identify, say, the 5th grade kids seem to have a big issue with sexting. So we may identify that as a cohort and teach that as an LRE to the 5th grade class. We may go and try to get into all the 5th grade English classes and do a lesson plan on sexting. And what happens? Do that with bullying, huge things that with the younger kids, and go in there, class, we'll identify a 3rd grade class or a 4th grade class. We'll go and do a 4 or 5 lessons on bullying, being a victim, being a witness. And what do you do how do you report it? What do you do if you've been bullied or something like that? So we go in, we teach it on a class basis and everything. But if there's an individual crime associated with it, they'll do the individual portion of it, deal with the student and parent and administration, and then from there, if we can identify a pattern or something like that, and that's we're part of the school emergency response teams or the officers, so they'll sit down in meetings every week, talk to the administration if they identify, maybe it's theft, maybe it's shoplifting. Great topic before proms and everything is alcohol. We do alcohol classes to the seniors before prom, before graduations and everything. We try to bring more in when we do DUI classes and stuff like that to educate. We're really there to prevent crimes. Arresting is not where we want to do. We're there to prevent and educate and mentor, help them make the positive choices, make good choices, and everything like that. So everything you see out on the street is happening at a school. That's why schools, it's such like community-based policing. Schools are the communities. That's why the school resource program is so valuable. The school is the community. When you think about it, when kids go there or parents go there, it is the focal point of the community. What's happening in the community is usually happening on campus. So if we can reach these kids before they make the bad choices, educate them, tell them, this is what could happen. This is, how do you get out of it? How do you deal with this and everything? That is our primary goal.
Some of my questions have been answered, so thank you. And I just want to comment, I'm one of those people who thinks we need a lot more police for the 5th largest city, so that all of our communities can be served like this, not just the schools. But, so 2 parts. One, if you're separated now into this, this field or whatever you call it, how are you integrating and communicating and really getting to know all your other beat officers to see where they might fit in this? And is there a conversation about if we can get more police officers in the next couple of years, hopefully we can get some things passed to fund. Will this be something that we can see available in all the schools, maybe even private charter, or have they talked about this?
Well, the first question is how do we communicate? The officers brief with the other officers on a regular basis, so we are all in communication. We have patrol officers, we have CAO, community action officers, we have net officers, neighborhood enforcement teams, and everything like that. So when there's a problem, whether it's involving a school or a student or anything like that, we communicate regularly. We're all working at pretty much the same precincts, everything, we get the car, we brief and everything. So there's great communication when it comes to identifying and working together. We have a burglary over at night and we got a suspect, maybe kids or something like that. The officer will get with the school resource officer and they'll communicate and they'll work through it and everything. So we do work well together and communicating with the patrol officers, with the beat officers. We invite the beat officers onto the campus and everything, tours and that kind of stuff. And that's where our training on campuses helps out. So we have great communication. Tough question is how do we expand it? Phoenix Police Department, if we have the resources and the opportunity, we can expand it. The legislator, the $11 million from the 301 money, that's a government issue. You know how the budget comes out and everything. So it's whether, it used to be. I've done this for 15 years. It used to be a large project because they were put additional funds into it besides the 301 money. But as the budgets go and they get cut. And the 301 money is not. They can't cut that. So that's what it was voted on. where the money is. If more money is put into the program, sure, we would love to increase and everything. We're looking at other options, like the SSO program is the second option and everything, because we have 2,800 officers and everything, but the things, within Phoenix, there's hundreds of schools. Mitch may have a better count than me being in school, but there's so many schools, we just don't have enough officers to put them at every school. So by allowing the SSO program, the off-duty officers to work in the schools, it helps increase the security of the school. They're not SROs, they're not teaching or anything like that, but they're on campus, and they are role models and mentors, and they are there to add additional security to the campus, layer of security there. And we do put them through additional training, so they do get some of the SRO training and everything, so they know how to work on campus with administration and stuff like that. So it's a little bit harder to increase them without that.
Well, the city of Phoenix needs to up their game a little bit. too.
Well, we're doing the best we can.
Not the police,
We're
I'm
all-
talking about the city.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned something that reminded me of a situation, we were in a different school district, well, in Scottsdale, so different jurisdiction, double. But can you clarify exactly what and this might be for, Mitch, but for the protocol in regards to if a student is brought in regarding his own behavior or regarding witnessing of another behavior, what is the whole questioning protocol and whether a parent, so there was actually questioning of a group of students by police officers, and parents were not notified prior to that in this other situation. So I'm just curious, so that we as parents can know, like, what is the exact protocol if for any reason our child is going to be potentially questioned again for their own reasons or through witnessing, or maybe they think the child has information about something going on with another child. What is the protocol for that
It
question?
could depend upon the circumstance. So first of all, from a school administrative standpoint, if we're going to bring in a child to question them regarding violation of a school policy, we don't necessarily really want to involve the SRO.
Sure.
There's no reason to.
Sure.
And from a high school perspective, for instance, even when we were had reason to believe there might be some drug use, it might first start with the administrative questioning, because we have a little more latitude in terms of just having reasonable suspicion. We invite the officer on in that conversation. Now we need more of a probable cause. So, there's this discussion there, but as soon as we have an inclination there's something criminal here, we'll either call patrol if we don't have an SRO, or reach out to Officer Blair, or utilize our SRO. In terms of the police questioning students, the police might come onto a campus to question a student for a variety of reasons. If it's something that has happened that is not at all germane to the school, has no nexus to the school, an incident over the weekend, we can kindly tell officers, really, we don't want to disrupt their education. Could you arrange for that interview at their home or something like that? And typically they'll oblige. There are times, though, when the police will come on and say, this is a serious criminal investigation. We are going to talk to this student. In that case, then, we will allow them to do so, but we will call the parent. We will acknowledge that, look, your child is going to be interviewed. If they can't be there, at times we, acting as the family, or the parent, will participate in that interview. I shouldn't say participate. Be at the interview. So it really depends a little bit on the circumstance in terms of that. But the policy, so to speak, we will make every effort to notify the parent that there's going to be an investigation, there's going to be an interview, and we want you aware and you can be here if that's your choice.
And we as a police department, based on the circumstances of the crime, if it's a violation, if I'm may involve parents or it could be about that, we may request the school not notification, and they will abide by our request for that may involve a child, whatever child issue or something like that. We may have to ask them not to notify parents until we conclude our investigation. But other than that, we work very well with the school and trying to let the parents know about everything we
Mitch, I think this is a great opportunity to tie in your next presentation, since you are our January speaker. Really, what has been presented here is a huge difference from even 15 years ago on zero tolerance to what is today. Really, in respect to restorative practices, a lot of what is being discussed is in that vein.
Absolutely. So when we talk about restorative practices, we're now looking at more opportunity to work with our adolescents, well, I shouldn't say adolescents, all of our children, in terms of trying to change behaviors and look at ways of making wrongs right. It really, from the educational standpoint, we would call it restorative practices, but its roots are in the criminal justice system, restorative justice, in terms of trying to look at methods instead of incarcerating our youth, which just leads to further incarceration, of looking to alternatives to changing the behavior and trying to, again, repair the harm. So there has been a transition, and that's the one beauty about the school resource officers, is it fits very closely to that. When I look at the work that these three gentlemen do with our kids, it is very much a restorative practice, and that's their philosophy. And we're starting to see that now more implemented. In January, my counterpart, Steve Jarris, who's the Director of Elementary Student Services, will be doing a presentation for you on restorative practices and the work we're doing here in the district.
One last question, kind of to tie what you've been talking about. There was mention made about life skills and the situations you deal with. From a school perspective, if a child's running into issues, whether it's bullying, sexting, or any of those other kind of problems, would you say that your department handles those problems differently than a community police officer would? And would we be more appropriate contacting you first before then escalating it outside of the SRO program? Again, depending on what kind of the severity of the situation, but from our side, where would be our point of contact if we're running into issues?
I think at first point of contact would go through Mitch, and he'll be able to assess the situation and decide if this is appropriate for Officer Blair to respond to and take care of. From a police perspective, any of our patrol officers are trained in the criminal aspect of dealing with a situation involved on campus and everything like that. The advantage we have with the SROs is that they're more familiar with the campus, they're more familiar with the students and everything like that, they're more familiar with the administration and everything like that. So it makes it a little bit easier to start that conversation and to go forward with the investigation. It just makes it a little bit easier. So if it's something that happens on campus and everything, and the opportunity does present itself, and Mitch will make that determination, we'll send Officer Blair or another officer. When I say another officer, SROs, I don't know if I mentioned, they're school specific. So he's school specific. The Pinnacle, I can't say we'll go over there and take care of North Canyon's problem. The grant is school specific, so he's required to stay on campus 80% of the time. He's required to teach on campus. He has to stay on that campus. That's the one they're paying for. That's the advantage of having Officer Blair, is he's not school specific. He can spread out a couple of our schools. So your first choice, if possible. Now, if it's an emergency situation, obviously, I want to get the first officer there. And to be honest with you, the communication with the police department we talked about, I get calls all the time, even at night sometimes, when students are involved in stuff. Patrol supervisors asking me questions or something like that, or something happens at a charter school. I'll go over to help out the patrol officer with the charter school and dealing with it like that. So we do communicate a lot with that. Charter schools are available to put in for the resource stuff. I'm not sure if I answered that question for you earlier. Charter schools are able to put in for the school as school resource officer grant. I believe there was one this last cycle that did get a grant, and they can put in.
Thank you for the work you do.
On yours, what we can provide, me specifically, is time, where a patrol officer can't do that. They have stacks called to get finish and go to, finish and go to. It's just a nonstop cycle for their 10-hour shift, where I can spend more time doing the restorative practice, which I do every day. Somebody's calling. Can you come in and talk to this group of students? Vaping, huge problem. What are the risks? What's the criminal side of it? And I can come in and teach that, to this group of students. Marijuana, still big, huge problem. The medical marijuana has increased the availability of it, so we're seeing it everywhere again. So being able to get in there, take the time, sit in a room and talk to them. Patrol doesn't have time to do that. That's where our role can come in and spend that extra little bit of time explaining it to them, having parents come in and work through it. It doesn't mean going to jail. That's the last thing I want for these kids. There's plenty of time in the future if you continue these steps on what you're going to get. And that's where I can educate them on that. I can tell them, here's the laws. Here's what could happen. Your disorderly conduct in the classroom and out here fighting, this is what it means outside when you're at QT, when you're not in school. How does it relate? What charges are there that's out there? Why do we respect that? So we go through everything, and we can talk about it for 10 minutes or an hour. And I can spend that extra time kind of reinforcing it and working with them, which we do all the time. Schools across our district call every day, looking for it may sound just like a parent meeting or a student meeting, but there's so much more that goes into it. Truancy, curfew, all the things that they don't ever get to ask an officer because they just don't have the time, or they don't want to walk up to an officer at the on a call and ask them what the questions are. That's what we're there for. We can kind of be that community bridge. And going to schools that have had an SRO, if you could stand beside me and walk into it, it's, hi, how you doing, officer? They're not worried about who you are, what are you doing. When I walk into a school that has never had an SRO, it's blank faces staring at you. Like, why is a police officer in my school? You really see a transformation that happens, and it's incredible. I didn't notice it at first, and now in my second year of it, it's like, wow, that's you see that gap going away, and they want to come up to you. Officer Blair, let me tell you the story. This is what happened to my friend. And where other schools that haven't got to experience it, they lack that, and it'd be great if we could have it everywhere. But sometime try to walk around with an SRO, see how the kids react and how they are. It's incredible, it really is. You build a relationship with them.
Thank you.
Love the program. I think it's amazing. Love what you guys do. And someone had to leave. Is at a school that does not have an SRO. So what is it kind of assigned? Does administration need to apply for it? What is the process to get that started if a school does not have one?
Well, it's within that next grade cycle. All of the schools would have that opportunity. I can only imagine in some sites, maybe some of our smaller schools, based upon the community, they might not feel the need of having an officer present. And we did have some schools that just did not make that, we cut the grade, so to speak, within the rubric, and so we're not awarded one. I would always encourage our principals to give this a shot and make the application.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's where it starts from is
Yep.
principal reaching. Okay.
So that's just it.
To you.
Well, no, they wouldn't make the application to me.
But as far as maybe getting going,
Well,
in
Having the
this
conversation,
like-
evaluating the needs and things like
Okay.
that, sure, absolutely. I'm happy to help them and help make that determination, as well as Sergeant Wilson too, in terms of what might be those needs and how can we make those next steps to make that grant application.
Okay. In this situation, it's a brand new principal, new to the state, new to the district.
Absolutely,
So that's why I'm
and
kinda
sometimes that's the case too.
trying to
I
gather
think some
extra
principals
information.
at schools, and I talk to a lot of them, they don't think they have a need for it. We don't need it, we don't have any
Okay.
problems. It's not about that. The program isn't about the crime that's on your campus.
Yeah.
It's about reaching kids, reaching families, and utilizing the resource, which we are. We have so many resources we can reach out and touch and help with. We wear 1,000 different hats. So just
Like you were
because there's
saying
kids
that-
not committing crimes doesn't mean that,
Enforcing,
yeah,
yeah.
we don't want to enforce on the campus all day long. We won't, that's not the role is to meet the law-related education, using us as a resource. So once they realize that, then they
Yeah.
understand how to write the grant and use us as that part of the community.
Just to kind of piggyback on that, so for with the new principal, does the district make the process known and available to
Oh,
all?
absolutely.
So in other words, it's like, hey, all principals, this is coming up, this is what you need to do,
Absolutely.
if
We'll
you
put
need
that
help,
out
and
there.
you've never done it before.
Mhm.
So essentially, a principal, if they're not choosing to apply for the grant, I mean, it's literally a choice that they're not just didn't know about
We
it,
don't mandate
or
that they
didn't
do,
know how to do it,
but
or.
in some cases, as an educator, that the culture they want on the campus, who knows,
Sure,
they might
they
not
just choose,
want to
yeah.
have
But
that.
it's not because they aren't aware, they don't feel like they
Oh,
have the.
absolutely not.
Because the district would support them in doing that if they chose to. And then my only other thought would be, would it make sense to have this group talk to the principal once a year to give this training so that so the principals understand that they don't have that myth like, oh, it's only if you, or, you know, your site's in a high crime area, whatever, understand like what it really came to.
I would like to think we do. You know, we make it pretty well aware, and especially, we do have people coming in new to the district, or maybe even new to the state that aren't fully aware. But I think we do a job of educating and, you know, at least bringing a level of consciousness of how this can serve the school and community.
And principals like to talk amongst one another too, to be able to
Yeah.
share like
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
the advantages.
The Department of Ed puts out the announcement statewide for the grant. It gets put out through this, and we meet with all the principal wants to discuss, put input and everything. I have SROs go over and help with the writing team and everything, but it is a school-based decision.
On your question, Wade, from earlier, the Scottsdale one, I go out to the Scottsdale schools.
Okay.
I know the principals. I've taken investigations for them because the crime happens in Phoenix. So we still do have a relationship with them, and I know all, you know, the campuses, and because of that, you know, they shouldn't just be isolated over there as the three that doesn't get the service. So they know they can call me still, and I'll answer any question when they can't get a hold of us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.